Johnny Mathis truly hated him more than anyone. Mathis was born in Gilmer, Texas, on September 30th, 1935. He grew up in San Francisco, California. Mathis was the fourth of 7 kids. Johnny's dad, Clem Mathis, saw early on that his son was good at music and became his biggest fan. He even built a small stage in their backyard so Johnny could play for friends and neighbors. That early support set him up for a career that would last more than 60 years, and make him known as one of the most famous romantic ballad artists of all time. Being famous didn't happen quickly for Johnny. He had to work hard, be disciplined, and keep trying. He became a successful athlete, and a great high jumper while at San Francisco State College. He was so good that he was invited to the U.S. Olympic trials, but fate had other ideas. In 1956, he was signed to the label Columbia Records after an executive heard him sing at a local club. This took him away from sports and into a career in music that would soon win the hearts of millions. He was different from other singers of the time because his early records had jazz, pop, and soul sounds. It's not for me to say, Wonderful and Wonderful were Mathis' first hits when they came out in 1957. They became instant classics and were the start of his rise to fame. Johnny's best hits, 1958, his first album of romantic ballads, was the first ever greatest hits album. This idea would later become standard in the music business. The album stayed on the Billboard Top 200 list for an amazing 490 weeks straight, which is almost 10 years. This solidified his status as a legend. Because of this, Mathis became famous for his rich orchestrations and warm, heartfelt singing, which made him one of the most loved voices of the 20th century. Mathis continued to top the charts in the 1960s and 1970s with a string of hits like Gina, Chances Are, The 12th of Never, Misty, and A Certain Smile. His records became works of art when he worked with great producers and arrangers like Percy Faith and Nelson Riddle. Each song had a sense of class and closeness to it, and his shows became linked to love. Johnny Mathis was always elegant and classy, whether he was on TV variety shows or in music halls. He became a well-known name for many generations. His work included a lot more than just popular songs. Mathis was able to make albums with a wide range of styles, including show tunes, Brazilian bossa nova, jazz standards, Christmas music, and even work with modern artists. People loved listening to his Christmas records during the holidays because they made them feel warm and nostalgic. People still love his versions of When a Child is Born, and it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas during the holiday season. Because of his amazing work, Johnny Mathis has received many honors, such as being nominated for a Grammy, receiving the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, and being inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. Over 350 million records have been sold around the world, showing how famous he is and how long-lasting his appeal is. In addition to awards, he has had an impact on many artists, who say that he was an example to them. From jazz musicians to pop singers, they all admire his physical skill and emotional range. Mathis is known for being humble, kind, and quiet when he's not on stage. He has stayed grounded despite his fame, putting family, friends, and honesty above fame. People admire him for being honest and brave by talking openly about who he is and how long it took him to accept himself. In his late 80s, Mathis still went on tour and made records, showing that love and artistry don't fade with age. People who grew up with his music, and people who are just now finding him, both love his voice, which is still rich and easy to recognize. Johnny Mathis was a timeless figure whose smooth voice defined generations of romantic music. His music still enchanted people in the 21st century. Mathis stayed committed to live performances even after many of his peers quit. He brought his love of music wherever his voice could be heard. Beginning in 2000, he consciously slowed down his busy schedule, cutting it down to 50 to 60 shows a year, which still surprised fans given how long he had been in the entertainment business. What really set Mai apart in a time when digital tracks and backing tapes were becoming more popular was his commitment to making music sound like it was meant to be played. Unlike most artists today, he continued to tour with his own full orchestra instead of a smaller touring band. This made sure that every note of his show had the full live sound that had become his trademark. The shows that Mathis put on were more than just nights of music, they were full experiences of style, humor, and longing. In later years, he often shared the stage with Gary Moore and Brad Upton, two comedians whose funny stand-up acts made the breaks between Mathis' sets very enjoyable. His shows felt warm and personal because they included both laughing and song. It was like Matthis was inviting them into his living room for an evening of timeless entertainment. People came from all over the world to see him perform because it was a rare chance to hear a living legend whose work spanned 7 decades and whose talent never faded. But in March 2025, a touching message marked the end of an era. Johnny Matthis announced on March 26 that he would be stopping traveling in May 2025 because of age and memory problems. Fans who had been following his amazing trip since the 1950s were both sad and thankful when they heard the news. Matthis, who had always been a true professional, promised to keep all of his performance dates and treat his fans and co-workers with the same respect that had defined his life and career. In keeping with his word, he ended every show with kindness and respect, turning each one into a moving goodbye for his fans. Legendary kicker Johnny Matthis finally talked about his sexuality in a deep and honest 2017 interview with CBS News on Sunday morning. For decades, people had been speculating and whispering about this topic. Matthis told the public that he is gay with the same grace and calm sincerity that have been a part of his music for more than 50 years. He was honest about how his upbringing and life events had shaped his view of himself. "I'm from San Francisco," he said with a smile, thinking about how welcome everyone was there. "There are a lot of gay people in San Francisco. Just like most people, I've had boyfriends and girls, but I've never been married. I was aware that I was gay. In that one moment, an artist who had always kept a sense of mystery and quiet respect throughout his long career showed a rare sign of weakness. To focus on his timeless singing and #1 romantic ballads that made him one of the most loved singers of all time, Matthis kept his personal life separate from his public life for many years. When he finally spoke out, his words hit home with millions of fans who had grown up listening to songs like Chances Are and Misty and had no idea that behind that smooth voice were personal problems. Mattis's choice to speak out was both a moment of personal truth and a powerful statement about being real, having guts, and the long road that many artists of his generation have to take to be accepted. A few decades ago, it was almost unthinkable for someone in the entertainment business to be publicly gay. A lot of times whispers were all that saved careers. Still, Johnny Matthis, who had one of the most enduring voices in American pop music, stood in front of the world and was cool and proud of who he was. After his interview with CBS News, Matthis continued to talk about his life with other news outlets, such as US Magazine and other well-known news outlets. He talked about how the world had changed since he started working in show business in the 1950s. His openness gave people a look into the private life of a man who had always seemed mysterious. This showed a human side that made people admire him even more. Mattis's revelation was a sign of self-acceptance and quiet strength in a society that often expected people to fit in. It was also a reminder that even the most polished stars are on their own paths of truth and discovery. Johnny Matthis has been known for many years to have one of the most beautiful and soft sounds in American pop music, someone who was thought of as having grace, style, and a quiet romantic dignity. But there were times when he was very angry and tense, and his relationship with Frank Sinatra was the most shocking example of this. Although they worked in the music business at the same time, were both admired by millions, and were often talked about in the same breath as the 20th century's greatest singers, Matthis once said that he didn't respect Sinatra. In a rare and bluntly honest interview, Mate said, "I really hated him. I didn't like how he treated people, especially other singers. He thought no one could hurt him, and maybe they couldn't, but I never liked how cocky that made him." Johnny Matthis came out in the middle of the 1950s, but Frank Sinatra was already a huge name in American theater. Sinatra was famous before he was even born. People knew him for being smart, but also for having a short fuse, having ties to the mob, and being able to make or break lives with one phone call. Matthis, on the other hand, stood for something different, feeling young, sweet, and emotionally pure. His songs like Chances Are Misty, and It's Not For Me to Say, showed a weakness that Sinatra's rough-and-tumble persona could never show. Some people were too clean-cut for him. Matthis thought back, he believed that kind of picture was fake, but I wasn't acting. That's what I was. I didn't smoke or drink, and I didn't hang out with the Rat Pack. He didn't like that for some reason. They often ran into each other at award shows, TV events, and recording studios. Not Matthis, though. He will never forget how Sinatra treated him the first time they met. "So you're the kid everyone's talking about," he said, looking me over 3 times. It was Mattis. Don't take it as a praise. It was more of an alert. He didn't like me right away. I could tell. I knew right then that I didn't like him either. Mattis says that Sinatra carried himself with a scary mix of charm and threat. Mate said, he could be nice to you if he wanted to. But I always thought there was a cost. He liked it when people owed him something. I did not want to owe him anything. Over time, the dislike turned into open contempt. Mattis stayed away from Sinatra's world of smoky bars, whiskey glasses, and late-night power plays. Mattis told me that I was a stranger, because I wasn't one of his guys. He would joke around and say mean things about the way I sang. Tell Johnny, hey, when are you going to sing like a man? He believed that being emotional or soft meant you were weak. My music wasn't bad though. It made me feel. There's a change. The subtle strength of Mattis as a performance. Sinatra's cocky appearance was very different from his ability to hold an audience with a whisper instead of a shout. It wasn't just a style difference. It was a clash of ideas. Frank was a king, and he thought everyone else should obey him. Mattis said, that was never me. I didn't have to be in his group to feel successful. Sinatra got people to respect him by being scary and in charge. But Mattis quietly built one of the most successful music careers of all time, selling more than 350 million songs, and winning fans of all ages. I think he didn't like that I didn't need his permission. Mattis thought, Frank's friendship was important to many people in the business, but not to me. That could be why he didn't like me. That could be why I didn't like him. As both men got older, the stress lessened over time, but it never really went away. Mattis said that we never became friends. We've always had that space between us. It's possible that we were too different. He was about having power. I cared about peace. But Mattis never denied Sinatra's ability, even when he was being honest. I liked what he was able to do. He said he had something special to give. There's no doubt about it. But I couldn't stand the person who gave the gift. Fans who have long thought that classic crooners were friends got a rare look into the battles and personal problems of that era. From Matisse's candor, Under the Tuxedos, and classic songs, there were real feelings like jealousy, pride and anger. Mattis came to the conclusion that people think performers love each other. What you said is not true. Sometimes the people you dislike the most are the ones who make you think of what you don't want to become. At the end of the day, Johnny Mattis never needed Sinatra's approval to know he was great. No fight could drown out his speech, his honesty and his lasting grace. But what he said about Sinatra is still a strong warning that respect isn't always earned, even among legends, and it's not easy to get back once it's gone.